The Huntbachs, Robert and Goldie, died of gunshot wounds. Police aren't saying how many or of what caliber. Autopsies are expected to reveal the time of death, but relatives last talked with the elderly couple Saturday. Today, concerned neighbors called police. The husband was found in the living room of their home here at 311 West 10th Street. Huntbach's wife was found upstairs in the hallway. Even though there was no forced entry into the home, police suspect the Huntbachs encountered a robber.
This time we're investigating it as a robbery homicide.
How were the bodies found? And who found the bodies?
How were the bodies found? Bodies were found by a neighbor who had been keeping an eye on the home.
Now Waterloo police are looking for anyone who can provide them with information concerning the crime. While no suspect has been pinpointed yet, Detective Captain Kehoe says numerous leads are being followed. Tom Garrison, TV9 Eyewitness News, Waterloo.
Who in their right mind would target, rob, torture, and murder two elderly people? The Huntbachs were not rich by any stretch of the imagination. This right now is a lower income neighborhood. And back 40 years ago, it was one of those neighborhoods that people, maybe they bought a house 25 years previous, and then they found better opportunities to raise their children in a better side of town, and they all moved to the other side. Now, at the time that they were murdered, they had already sold their home at 311 West 10th Street. I believe they sold it, and it was supposed to be torn down, and something was supposed to be built, which I'm assuming it's this right here. Now, their home sat right where this parking lot is now. And neighbors described the Huntbachs as just regular old-fashioned folk. They love to just hang out on their swing in their backyard, and the neighborhood kids would stop by and they would talk to them, and they were elderly, so you got neighbors that used to live in these homes back then. They probably kept an eye on them just to make sure that, you know, everything was okay and if they needed anything or what have you. And one of their neighbors or friends was kind of concerned that they hadn't seen the Huntbachs for quite some time, so they just thought they would check in on them. And that is when the police made their way inside and discovered Robert. He was in the living room. He had been shot twice in the head, and Goldie was found upstairs, also shot twice in the head. And this murder, there were some suspects, but it would go unsolved for over 30 some odd years, until in 2012, a man that lived over 1,500 miles away in Southern California came to the Waterloo Police Department and had a shocking story to tell the officers that worked at the station that day about a crime that he committed. We're going to fast forward to May 9th of 2021. Now, on that date, I'm imagining it is a regular day here in Waterloo, Iowa. And this police station right here, detectives are looking over their casework, talking to each other. Just another typical day here in Waterloo until a 66-year-old man named Jack Purcell walked right through that door. In May of 2012, a man walks into the Waterloo Police Department and he says, "I want to talk to a detective about an unsolved murder." So a detective comes out and this man says, "I want to talk about an unsolved murder. It's a murder that happened back in 1981 of the Huntbachs." So the detective says, "Okay, come on back." So they take him into a room and he tells them something that nobody in 1,000 years is ever going to tell them. He tells them that not only does he know who's responsible for their murders, but he tells them the person that's responsible is sitting right across the table from you. They can't believe what they're hearing. So oftentimes a lot of people, believe it or not, will do stuff like this if they're feeling depressed or their life is over in their opinion. They'll go in there and confess to a murder that had absolutely nothing to do with it. So one thing that police and detectives do to sift out the fakes is they'll ask the person something about the crime scene that only the killer would know. And that's exactly what this man, 66-year-old Jack Wendell Purcell, that's what he did. He told the detectives only things that either police knew or that the killer knew. And once they believed him, they promptly placed him under arrest and charged him with the double murders of the Huntbachs. Now, he went to court, and they originally set his bail at $500,000, and then they went ahead and raised it to $2 million. So this guy was not going to get out, and he would later be found guilty and be sentenced to life in prison. Now, you have a murder that occurred many, many, many years ago. What would make a man now commit a crime that would never be solved and then years later go on and confess to something that he didn't have to confess to? And he basically said in so many words that, God told him to confess.
Jack, murder is a sin. The Huntbachs, confess.
The family needs closure.
Blood bleed.
You cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. No sin shall live here.
Confess your sins. Only through penance. Only through penance there will be admittance.
Now, Purcell was a person of interest in the matter back when the murders occurred. He wasn't a suspect, but he was a person of interest. Detectives theorized that he was dating a family member of the Huntbachs, and when he went to commit this crime, he had every intention on killing them. This was not going to be where you go and you tie them up and you take whatever you want and leave them. No, he was going in there to kill them and rob them and leave. And he wouldn't be, after the murders, he wouldn't stay out of trouble. It was only but after a couple months in California, he was arrested for having sex with a minor. He ended up getting sentenced in that case in 1981. He ended up doing about 11 years of his sentence, and then he was paroled in 1992. He completed the 3 years of parole, and for the remainder of his time, he lived in Southern California. And at the time that he turned himself in, he was living in some senior apartments over in Southgate. Southgate is basically right next to, I believe it's right next to Compton in the Los Angeles area. And so the man drove 1,800, 2,000 miles to do something that he should have done a long time ago, but then again, to commit a crime and confess to it, a crime that should have never been committed altogether. Robert was a veteran of World War I, and he had worked for a packing company before he retired when he was, I want to say, in his mid-60s. And that bastard that murdered these poor defenseless people, he had every intention before even going into that home of killing them. And for what? I couldn't find anything on if this guy had something of value, but the murderer, he was either friends or acquaintances with a family member of the Huntbachs. To survive World War I, and you make it to your golden years, and to be taken out in such a cowardly fashion. You're 85 years old and your wife is 77, and you're tortured with a cattle prod. And your last conscious memory is your wife. And being 85, you're defenseless. Rest in peace to both. All right, guys, I'm out of here. On to the next untold story. I hope to see you on the next video. Peace out.